hearts to the words of Matthew chapter 12 verses 1 to 21, where Jesus and his disciples navigate the Sabbath, plucking grain as hunger calls. This passage is a window into the tension between tradition and compassion, a tension we find ourselves in even today. Point 1. Tradition and hunger. In the backdrop of Matthew's Gospel, we see Jesus and his disciples traversing grain fields on the Sabbath, a day dedicated to rest and worship. The disciples, hungry, pluck grain to nourish themselves. The Pharisees, however, object, citing the breach of Sabbath law. Comparative reference. Reflecting on this, consider Mark chapter 2 verse 27, where Jesus says, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath." Here, Christ emphasizes the prioritization of human need over rigid adherence to tradition. Point 2. Lessons from David's hunger. Jesus responds to the Pharisees by invoking the example of David, who, when hungry, entered the house of God and ate the bread meant for priests. It challenges the Pharisees to understand the spirit of the law. Comparative reference. We find a parallel in Hosea chapter 6 verse 6, "For I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings." This echoes Jesus' message that mercy and understanding surpass strict legalism. Point 3. The Lord of the Sabbath. In verse 8, Jesus declares, "For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath." Here, Christ asserts his authority over the Sabbath, emphasizing that he brings a new understanding, rooted in mercy and compassion. Quote from a father of the Church, Street. Augustine once wrote, "Understand that you may believe, believe that you may love, and love that you may serve." In embracing the Lord's teachings, we find a path to true service. Point 4. Sabbath healing. The narrative continues as Jesus enters the synagogue, encountering a man with a withered hand. The Pharisees question the legality of healing on the Sabbath, prompting Jesus to emphasize the intrinsic value of doing good. Comparative reference. Connecting this with Exodus chapter 39 verses 32 to 40, where the intricate details of the tabernacle are outlined, we learn that even in the construction of sacred spaces, the purpose is to honor God and serve his people. Point 5. God's chosen servant. As we reflect on these passages, let's tie them to the larger narrative of God's chosen servant, as prophesied in Isaiah. Jesus, fulfilling this prophecy, embodies justice, compassion, and humility. Teachings of Pope Francis. In the spirit of Pope Francis, who urges us to be a church that reaches out to the peripheries, let us remember that the Sabbath is not just a day of rest but a call to reach out to those in need. Connecting to Kerala context and current affairs, in our context, where tradition and spirituality are deeply woven into the fabric of daily life, let us ponder how we can balance these with the pressing needs of our neighbors. The richness of our faith calls us to be compassionate laborers, reaching out to heal wounds, both physical and spiritual. As we embark on this journey of understanding, may our hearts be open to the teachings of Christ, who, as the Lord of the Sabbath, calls us to a Sabbath of the heart, a day of rest and compassion. Amen.
വചനവയൽ ആപ്പ് എക്കാലത്തെയും വചന പഠനത്തിനുള്ള ബൈബിൾ ക്വിസുകൾക്കുള്ള ഉത്തമ സഹായി. ഇന്നു തന്നെ ഗൂഗിൾ പ്ലേ സ്റ്റോറിൽ നിന്ന് വചനവയൽ ആപ്പ് ഡൗൺലോഡ് ചെയ്ത് വിവിധ ക്വിസുകൾക്കായി പഠിക്കാൻ ഈ ബുക്കുകൾ സ്വന്തമാക്കൂ. ലോഗോസ് ക്ലബ് അംഗത്വമെടുത്ത് ലോഗോസിനായി ഒരുങ്ങാം. വചനവയൽ യൂട്യൂബ് ചാനൽ സബ്സ്ക്രൈബ് ചെയ്ത് മത്സര റിസൾട്ടുകൾ ആദ്യം അറിയാം. www.vajanavayal.com എന്ന സൈറ്റിലും ഈ ആപ്പ് ലഭ്യമാണ്. എക്കാലത്തെയും ബൈബിൾ ക്വിസുകൾക്കും സഭാവിജ്ഞാന ക്വിസുകൾക്കും പരീക്ഷകൾക്കും വേദപാഠ പരീക്ഷകൾക്കും സഹായിക്കുന്ന 1,00,000-ൽ പരം ചോദ്യോത്തരങ്ങൾ. എക്കാലത്തെയും ബൈബിൾ ക്വിസുകൾക്കായുള്ള പഠന സഹായം വചനവയൽ ആപ്പ്.